this is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Good morning, Dick Morris.
Good morning. Happy Daylight Savings Time. We are not an hour early. You are an hour late. In the Iran war, there is a real opportunity for tremendous economic and political growth by the United States after we win that war. It's very important to understand it. For nearly half a century, the U.S. and Iran have existed in a cycle of confrontation that began with the hostage crisis. Since then, relations between the two countries have been defined by sanctions, proxy conflicts, and geopolitical rivalry. In practical terms, the U.S. and Iran have lived in what military analysts describe as a long-running war for more than 4 decades. At the same time, the U.S. has remained locked in a standoff with North Korea that dates back even further to the Korean War. Against this historical backdrop, President Trump has pursued a diplomatic approach few American presidents have been willing to attempt, meeting directly with adversaries. Trump became the first sitting U.S. president to meet face-to-face with a North Korean leader and has repeatedly stated that he's willing to meet with any world leader, friend or adversary, if diplomacy can reduce conflict and promote stability. In a world exhausted by endless conflict, the willingness to talk has become one of the most powerful tools in diplomacy. Today, the possibility of peace and trade normalization in the Middle East, including Iran, represents one of the most consequential diplomatic opportunities of the modern era. After more than 20 years of military engagement across the Middle East and Central Asia, Americans across the political spectrum are increasingly weary of prolonged foreign wars and boots-on-the-ground deployment. Under several administrations, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Biden have been involved in ongoing wars and conflicts in Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, Libya, Yemen, and Pakistan. The cost of these conflicts imposed enormous financial and human costs on the United States, trillions spent, while many Americans increasingly question whether the wars are worth it. Recent conflicts have also shown that warfare itself has evolved dramatically. The war between Russia and Ukraine, increasingly defined by high-tech systems rather than traditional large-scale troop deployments. Today's battlefields revolve around drones and unmanned systems, precision missiles, cyber warfare, satellite intel, electronic warfare, and control of airspace. Modern war increasingly resembles high-tech target practice in the skies and digital space rather than traditional ground combat. Because escalation can occur rapidly with advanced technologies, diplomatic solutions and conflict prevention have become even more important. And this is particularly important because of the location of Iran, located between the Persian Gulf, Central Asia, Caucasus, and South Asia. It sits along key trade routes. Iran also holds some of the world's largest oil and natural gas reserves. If peace allowed Iran to participate more fully in global energy markets, increased supply could help stabilize global energy prices and reduce inflationary pressures. Now, this sounds kind of far-reaching, given the conflict we're involved in now. But looking ahead to the day when the U.S. wins that conflict, which is going to come soon, we have to realize how important it could be. Roughly a fifth of the world's oil passes through the Straits of Hormuz, a narrow maritime corridor between Iran and Oman. Whenever tensions rise in the region, energy prices spike, shipping insurance costs increase, supply chains become uncertain. A peaceful relationship between the U.S. and Iran would dramatically reduce the risk of disruptions in this crucial energy sector. So Trump, I think, increasingly realizes the potential economic gains that could stem from peace. And so does Israel, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, among the wealthiest countries in the world, with strong financial resources, modern infrastructure, and increasingly sophisticated security capabilities. As the region evolves, it may be time for the Middle Eastern nations themselves to take greater responsibility for regional security. And that's what we're really seeing now. And it's all made possible by the escalation of the war in Iran. So it's really odd to say that peace can come as a result of war, but we're looking at that. History shows that when long-standing conflicts end, economic growth often accelerates rapidly. Peace agreements reopen trade corridors, encourage infrastructure investment, and allow tourism and commerce to flourish. We've all seen the rapid advancement of economies in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and other nations in the Middle East. Everyone can see the potential of peace in the region. A normalized economic relationship with Iran could stimulate development across pipelines, ports, rail networks, logistic hubs, digital infrastructure linking Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Americans have always been intrigued with Iran. Many see Iran and Iraq as very important historically. But millions of jobs could emerge across industries, including engineering, construction, transportation, energy, manufacturing, and technology. Peace is not only a diplomatic victory, it is a strategic economic engine.
Well, Dick, the thing I get from this whole thing what you're talking about here is regime change to proper people that are in the government.
Yeah.
You know, we could do all we want, but you get some crazy ayatollahs back in there, and it's not going to help. We got to make sure Iranian people are strong enough.
You're absolutely right. But bear in mind that the Ayatollah came to power with a strong popular base because the Shah had so alienated people by his military police, his repressive conduct, that there was a major backlash against him. But now that the momentum is coming the other way, and in fact the Shah's son indicated that he might be available to be a transitional leader in Iran, and it's possible that he will be, and that completely reconfigures the entire economy and strategy of the region.
But what about the existing regime now that's getting decimated? If they are strong enough not to let this Shah's son back in, how is that going to work? Will it work?
Well,
how do you feel about that?
Again, strong enough means first that he can control the military and make it impossible for a new regime to emerge. And that's why the U.S. is concentrating on bombing and missile strikes.
Well, I heard, Dick, that we were going to set up a conference for the new leaders, you know, these terrorist leaders to come in and choose their new leader.
Yeah,
and we're going to build a giant bar where they can have drinks and drink, and they could drink until they get bombed. I made that up, by the way. I didn't steal that from anyone.
In fact, what's been going on is that the Iranians had convened a conference of their ayatollahs to select a new leader. And the idiots did the conference outside.
With flags, with target flags. Yeah. Hi, I'm over here. And they got bombed.
And the U.S. and Israel bombed them. And
they were doing shots.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, this is good. Crack me up. I hope people like this.
Yep. Now, while this is going on domestically, there was a bit of a revolution in the Latino voting in Texas. There was a special election in Texas, and the Latino turnout was so high that it really reconfigured the whole nature of those districts, and it led people to believe that ultimately the Latino vote is not just coming out of the closet in voting for Trump, but also influencing primaries, and it changed the configuration there very substantially. Now, in addition to all this, Trump is winning an important victory in the courts. The Supreme Court ruled that California parents have the right to know about gender change therapy.
On Monday, the California is likely violating, this is the Supreme Court said, California is likely violating the constitutional rights of parents who object to policies preventing teachers from disclosing when their children change their names or pronouns in school. The decision marks a major victory for parental rights advocates at this early stage of the case.
Trump also in the campaign spoke about you put Jack on the school bus and Jill gets off.
Right.
And that's the first clue you had, that the school is trying to make your boy into a girl or vice versa.
Yeah, and a blow to the state's efforts to shield the privacy of the LGBTQ1-3+4 students. The justices have yet to resolve the fiercely disputed issues, and the case could ultimately return to the High Court. At least 5 of the 6 conservative justices ruled for the parents through Justice Neil Gorsuch did not publicly disclose his vote. The court's 3 liberal justices dissented. The parents who assert a free exercise claim have sincere religious beliefs about sex and gender, and they feel a religious obligation to raise their children in accordance with those beliefs. California's policies violate those beliefs, the court wrote. It restores a judge's order preventing California schools from misleading objecting parents about their children's gender presentation and their social transitioning efforts at school. First of all, this is so weird that we're even talking about this. You're going to not tell me my child is going to get an operation for a gender whatever. Teachers must also follow parents' directions regarding names and pronouns. This is ridiculous.
Not enough to name your baby. You have to name the pronouns.
You know, it took me so long to even understand when they say, what's your pronoun? And I go, what does that mean? The state argues that its policies advance a compelling interest in student safety and privacy. Okay. The unsigned opinion read, but those policies cut out the primary protectors of children's best interest, their parents. 2 of the court's leading conservative justices, Clarence Thomas and Alito, would have went further. They additionally sided with teachers suing who argue their constitutional rights are being violated alongside the parents. Right? I don't understand that last sentence, Dick. They additionally sided with teachers suing who argue their
they
constitutional
were arguing that their constitutional right to be good teachers and to respect their students and to let parents have control.
Right.
Because the whole attitude here is nobody has any control except for the court, except for the government.
Matt, do we have Roxana on the line yet? No. Okay. All right. I think no, we have time for this one, Dick. Private sector job growth in February is largest in 7 months. U.S. private payrolls increased by the most in 7 months in February, though data for the prior month was revised sharply lower. And the ADP National Employment Report showed Wednesday, that's what it showed. Private employment rose by 63,000 jobs last month, the largest since July of 25, after a downwardly revised 11,000 increase in January. So that's pretty good, don't you think?
Yep.
I see midterms coming.
Yeah. And Trump is so likely to win those midterms.
And you know the other thing with the midterms, I think I mentioned this last week. I don't remember. The economy, as I said, to go slow. It's better to go slow. But now we're going to start to see it happen. But also that State of the Union, where the Democrats just sat down, even when he was talking about that beautiful family that lost their child on the subway or on the train, that guy just cut her up or whatever, and she was crying, and everyone stood up, and the Democrats sat down, and he said something to the effect like, really, you're not going to stand for that? I have to say that even moderate Democrats, definitely swing independent voters, have to be looking at that and say, I don't want these people around anymore. Have to, meaning Democrats. I don't want to see Democrats that don't have compassion, that they're more compassionate towards the criminal or the murderer than the mother and the family of that woman, of that girl. That was horrible. So that's where I think both things are going to have a place in the midterms. The economy, definitely, that's absolute. But then you have people that are in the middle. Oh, the economy's not so good. They're going to say, look at these people sitting down.
Exactly. One of the key things I've been urging President Trump to do is to draw a comparison between what's happening now and what would happen if the Democrats won the midterms. And the Democrat, where Trump sometimes does not make the case well, the Democrats do. And ultimately they portray the reality they're trying to bring as so coherently and so articulately.
The Democrats are saying.
The Democrats.
Right. And what reality is that?
That the independents end up voting Republican.
Right. What's that reality? That we're horrible people, we don't have any empathy?
Well, anything. Things like you can change the gender of a child without telling the parents. And you can do that with taxpayer money through public schools.
I can't understand how any parent would say that's okay. Anyone. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're the devil. How can you think that that's something that, I guess because they think that, they want that.
Now, the war in Iran has a new aspect to it. The Kurds, Kurds, who've been an ethnic
That's
group,
not cheese.
who've been an ethnic group in Iraq and Iran and have been fighting for freedom for decades, now have decided to join the war against the Iranian regime and launched a major ground offensive. They reportedly launched a ground offensive against Iran with Israel and but not with troops from the U.S. Fox News reported that an unnamed U.S. official told them that thousands of Kurdish fighters have crossed into Iran. The Kurds, who are located in northern Iraq, have been strong allies of the United States. Fox noted that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said the U.S. military is not arming an insurgency inside Iran, but he suggested other parts of the U.S. government could potentially be involved. He was referring, of course, to the CIA. CNN confirmed that the CIA is working with Kurds, according to multiple people familiar with the plan.
Well, you see, Dick,
this reminds me very much of what happened in Afghanistan.
Sure.
Where the U.S. did not want to send ground troops in to fight.
Was that Reagan?
Yeah. It did not want to send ground troops in, but instead armed the Northern Alliance. And the Northern Alliance, which had been fighting the Taliban on their own, suddenly became empowered. That movie, Charlie Wilson's The War,
right.
It really explains that.
And Reagan gave them land to air shoulder, the missiles, which they ended up using against us at one point later on, didn't they? If I remember that.
All right, so Roxanne?
No, not yet, but we have to take a break.
Okay.
And then we come back. Hopefully Roxanne calls in. Hello.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. It is very rare these days that you get a unanimous Supreme Court decision. It has to basically be an affirmation of democracy to get all the judges to agree. But this week we had a big breakthrough on immigration. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the most recent judge appointed to the court and a certified liberal, voted to authorize the Supreme Court ordering federal courts to defer to immigration judges when reviewing asylum decisions, bolstering the executive branch's authority in immigration cases and handing the Trump administration a win as it pursues an aggressive deportation agenda. Jackson, a Biden appointee and one of 3 liberal judges on the High Court, wrote that the immigration laws require federal courts to use a substantial evidence standard when reviewing immigration judges' decisions about whether an asylum seeker could face persecution if deported. Jackson emphasized the high bar courts must meet before overturning an immigration judge's findings, potentially making it more difficult for migrants to challenge their deportation. The agency's determination is generally conclusive unless any reasonable adjudicator would be compelled to conclude to the contrary, Jackson wrote. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, migrants can claim asylum when crossing the border without documentation. But immigration judges who are employees of the DOJ eventually vet these claims and determine whether to grant migrants asylum, which would allow them to stay in the country, or order their deportation. Migrants can appeal the decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is also housed within the executive branch, and then can appeal that decision to the federal circuit courts and even the Supreme Court. But now the Supreme Court has ruled unanimously that immigration agencies, not individual judges, determine whether asylum claims are based on alleged prosecution, a clear reminder that American laws should be enforced as written. The Supreme Court was tasked with reviewing whether the First Circuit examined immigration judges' decisions thoroughly enough. The High Court concluded that the First Circuit rightly leaned heavily on the immigration law judges' determination.
Interesting.
So it's incredible to see Jackson, the most liberal judge on the court, writing for a unanimous court in affirming Trump's control over immigration, a very important change. As we recite the headlines from after the Supreme Court decision, the latest Harvard-Harris poll stands out as very significant. First of all, as I've said before, this is the most important poll to watch because it's the most accurate and the most impartial. And the court found after the State of the Union speech that 53% of the voters trust Trump to manage the economy over the Democrats. 52% say the economy is better now than it was under Biden, up 5 points from January. 65% agree the Supreme Court decision limiting executive power to impose tariffs in non-emergencies. 85% say only U.S. citizens should be allowed to vote. 71% support the SAVE Act. The midterm horse race is tied, but Republicans have a 4-point messaging edge among likely voters.
So, Dick, just explain the SAVE Act again. I asked you earlier today.
The SAVE Act says that in federal elections, that is elections for president, for Congress, for House and Senate, that you cannot vote without having photo ID, and you can't even register to vote without proof of citizenship.
Common sense.
Now, traditionally, this goes against the concept that states, not the feds, regulate the franchise. They decide who's eligible to vote and who's not. And the courts have held that renders the federal government largely impotent when it comes to these issues. Trump has been pushing the SAVE Act, S-A-V-E, I forget what the acronym is,
Right.
which says that in federal elections, that is not true. That now the federal government, not the state governments, determines policies about photo identification and proof of citizenship when you register to vote. Now, that has already passed the House, but the SAVE Act is now pending in the Senate, and the liberals are filibustering it. The Democrats want to stop a vote, and normally you'd say that wouldn't be a problem because of Republican control of the Senate. But 4 Republican senators, led by Mitch McConnell, who is taking forever to leave the court, to leave the Senate,
Mumbles McConnell,
are saying that the power of the states to regulate things like citizenship and voting and the various constraints that require photo ID, that those are mandated by the states, and the people opposing Trump's agenda are saying, keep your hands off it. This is something that entirely is controlled by the states. But in the SAVE Act, they're saying, but in this instance, on these issues, the federal government controls, and it's within the rights and power of the federal government to say you have to have identification, photo ID, in order to vote. And when you register to vote, you have to have proof of citizenship. Now, the Democrats are filibustering this, but there are some Republicans who have joined the filibuster and are supporting the Democrat position.
And you said they're doing that so that in the future, the Democrats, they don't want to be able to close the filibuster, correct?
Yeah.
But I say the Democrats are going to do that anyway in the future.
But there's a new development that I think is fascinating. Trump has said that until the SAVE Act is passed, which means that you federalize these requirements.
Sure.
Until that is passed, he will not proceed to endorse a candidate in the Senate election in Texas that just went on. Now, in the Senate primary in Texas, there was a very close result. 43% voted for Cronin, who is the current senator, and 42% voted for Ken Paxton, who is the Attorney General.
And these are the two that do not want the filibuster to move forward, correct?
Well, no. What's going on now is that Trump has said that until this is resolved, until you guys let the SAVE Act pass, I will not appoint Cronin, even though he won more votes than Paxton.
Right.
And Cronin is a guy that the establishment Republican Party wants in that seat. And there's been a real effort by senators to get him elected, and frankly to keep Paxton out of the Senate,
right,
because he's pretty radical. And now Trump has said that until the SAVE Act is passed and the Republicans go along with breaking this filibuster, he is not going to make an endorsement of Cronin, and that increases the chances that Paxton will win the seat. And the hardline, old school Republican leaders in the Senate do not want Paxton in that seat because he's a real bomb thrower and a really aggressive conservative. And the Old Boy Network wants Cronin to be selected.
The good old boys?
Yeah, well, bad old boys.
Yeah,
right.
bad old boys, right.
And now Trump has basically said that unless you give me what I want in terms of the SAVE Act and you break your opposition to curbing the filibuster, I am not going to make an appointment in this race.
That is so much more important to have the voters, have legal voters, citizens, than this whole filibuster thing and Paxton and Cornyn or whatever it is. It's so much more important to pass the SAVE Act Bill. Absolutely. So these guys better get off the pot. I can't say it.
Well,
but anyway,
it's so brilliant of Trump to link those two issues.
Yeah.
And say, if you want me to endorse Cronin because you like him around, you have long deals with him, you've been an ally of his for decades, and you don't want Paxton, you better give me the SAVE Act.
Yeah, right.
And break that
That's
filibuster.
That's important. Listen, I got Roxana a time machine, and now I think she knows what time it is now because we have the daylight saving. For another thing, daylight savings is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Daylight saving. Why? Oh, because the farmers, the kids got to get up when it's dark. So how about you change the time that you go to school in the winter? You make it whatever, later or before, whatever it is. And the other thing, I'm going to go with the time now. See, now we're going with the time. 10 o'clock a.m., 11 o'clock a.m., 12 o'clock p.m. Seriously? It should be 12 o'clock a.m. It's in the same group. 9, 10, 11, 12. Should all be in the same group of a.m. or p.m. Any moron, whoever decided that 12 o'clock goes p.m., even though it's in the a.m. slot, is wrong. 1 o'clock should turn into p.m. So that's my story.
I'll pass your comments on to God.
It wasn't God. Hi, Roxana. You're out of the time machine?
Well, I'm up in the Ozark Mountains of the great state of Arkansas.
Mike Huckabee.
I forgot the hour prior that we're.
So we talked about California and the Supreme Court, what they did with this teachers and parent thing with transitioning, whatever that is. So what do you have to say, Rock?
Well, that was my thoughts, my topic, and so I'd like to begin it with honor thy mother and father. It's the fifth commandment, and the first with a promise noting that obedience brings blessing and longevity.
Mother Parents and father, it's not honor thy mother and thy mother.
Oh yeah, put a LBGQ GQ.
Sure you read that?
Hey, that's not involved in this.
Honor thy mother and mother.
Somehow it didn't make it in that book.
All right,
but the
go
fifth commandment is the fifth commandment, and the first with a promise noting that obedience brings blessing and longevity. Parents have a foundational duty, framing it as a legal right. Instruction to parental wisdom, which even in the Bible is described as a garland of grace. Our laws in the United States has been clear. The responsibility is of the parent until a child turns 18. When a government tells parents how to raise their children, it is described as state infringement, government overreach, and coercive state interference, and has always been against the law of this land. Democrats during the Biden administration was like watching adults running to a mountain's edge without guardrails. Or if you're old enough to remember the phrase, drink the Kool-Aid, the Jonestown Massacre, signifying extreme, unquestioning devotion to a cause, leader, or ideology. Sound familiar? And so here we are. For parents to have to fight for the rights of their children not to mutilate their bodies, making decisions with unparalleled psychological consequences was originally, when brought up, surreal. However, when it became a truism, even though so absurd, parents already struggling with so many issues, this absurdity had to be addressed, debated, and put in the forefront for their children's safety now and for the future. California's ruling regarding parental rights, as mentioned by Doug earlier, the U.S. Supreme Court wisely blocked this law coming into fruition that allowed public schools to keep a student's gender identity or transition not hidden from their parents. The court ruling concluded such policies violated parents' 14th Amendment rights to direct the upbringing of their children and the First Amendment. This ruling also requires school districts to notify parents if a child even requests to use a new name or pronoun. Quite the change. Thank God common sense finally prevails. I want to quote in ending Jane D. Hall, which was the first woman elected for governor of Arizona, a Republican. She quoted, "At the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents."
Right.
Wise words indeed.
Beautiful. And that's plural, parents.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
you know what's funny, Roxanne, as you kind of touched on, they normalize this. It's almost like this should not be normal. You know, of a teacher telling a child, "Oh, sure, don't tell your parents." The Democrats normalize this.
Well, that's why, Doug, at the beginning it was surreal.
Yeah.
But then when it became a reality, it was still unbelievable, but you had to fight it.
It's unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. But now that's finally passed, and hopefully that just continues to be something that's unfortunate in our history.
Do me a favor. Go say hello to Mike Huckabee and Sarah.
Right.
You know, they're in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not the
great show so far.
But not the Clintons. Oh, listen to this. Let me tell you. So I fly down to Arkansas last week to help Roxana a little bit, right? And I walked through the Bill and Hillary Clinton airport. This is great. I forgot all about this until right now. This is great. So on one wall, there's photos of Clinton, the White House, him and Hillary, different photos. Now, one photo of Dick Morris. He's not in one of those photos. So I didn't have time because I turned around, I jumped back on the plane like within a day or two, right? And I came right back, right? This is great. I want to take a bunch of photos of Dick that I have in my phone, print them and different sizes, and then walk through the airport with some spray mount and just put them next to the photos of Clinton and Hillary. And if I didn't get arrested, it would be hilarious. Pictures of Dick next to Hillary.
Yeah, right.
Giving her the finger. No, that would be
smiling and loving.
I definitely would get arrested. But come on, that's
I think
stuff.
So thank you, Roxana.
Thank you, Roxana.
Oh, you're welcome, and I miss you. I'll see you in a few days.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Roxana, that was great. All right.
The
tariff refunds.
The issue after the Supreme Court invalidated the legal basis for Trump's tariffs, although they're now moving ahead with other justification. The question arose of, will people and companies be entitled to refunds of tariffs they already paid? And more than 1,000 companies have sued for refunds, hoping the government will now return tens of billions of dollars following the much-anticipated decision. Fortunately, the order from the senior judge of the U.S. Court on International Trade said that there can be a delay in these refunds and that they don't have to be done immediately. And that's very important for Trump because he doesn't have to come up with that money immediately. And eventually the statutory basis for supporting the tariffs exists really in other statutes as well. So the odds are that he's never going to have to actually cough up the money.
Wow, see, that's interesting. That's nice to hear. Listen, let me just put out the call-in number, please. 800-848-9222. So call in whatever you got. You got some questions. You could beat Dick Morris down and think you could beat him on something. That'll be great. 800-848-9222. Remember we had, it was a year ago at least, so it was a while back.
Oh, longer than that.
Longer than that, I had challenged Dick Morris. Almost like we were doing it way before the Charlie Kirk thing, but it was the same type of thing. Right. You know, prove me wrong. I didn't say that. It was challenge Dick Morris. And but don't be mean to him because then I got to come beat you up or something like that. So anyway, the call-in is 800-848-9222. All right, what do we got, Dick?
The battlefield in Iran could be changing significantly because the Pentagon officials reported that waves of Iranian-launched drones are punching through air defenses, often leaving American troops and bases in the Gulf region vulnerable to attacks. 6 Americans have already been killed in a drone strike. To combat Iran's drones, a relatively inexpensive weapon that costs around $20,000 to quickly produce, American armed forces are bleeding costly Patriot and THAAD interceptors that take years and billions of dollars to build.
Millions.
This is the long-term answer to this has found in Israel, where they've recently been using the Iron Dome, they call it, the Iron Shield,
right?
Where they don't send up a Patriot missile to knock down a drone, which is ridiculous. A $100 million missile to knock down a 40-cent drone.
Yeah, but Friday, Trump said he met with major defense contractors, included Lockheed Martin, the maker of the THAAD, the THAAD, and Raytheon, which produces Patriots, exactly, during which he claimed they agreed to quadruple production of so-called exquisite class
But
weapons.
the ultimate answer here is what Israel's doing, which is rather than sending up a missile that has to be replaced by another missile, they basically use a laser beam to shoot down the drone. And the laser
beam costs
beam,
like $1.380.
Yes, the laser beam is as cheap as the drone. And it's so interesting how the Iran war is forcing an upgrading of military strategy, which Israel has always been ahead of, and now does not mean that the cost of replacing the missile is screwing up the defense budget.
You know, Trump said, I told you you were going to get bombed. That's my friend Ray sent that in to me.
Iran's strategy is predicated upon sending massive amounts of cheap drones that the U.S. needs to shoot down with expensive interceptors. Tehran is attempting to pursue a strategy of death by 1,000 paper cuts to bleed U.S. and Israeli defenses.
Excellent.
Brett Velichikov, former Army Special Operations soldiers who worked with Ukraine's drone forces in defense against Russia, said he and other drone experts have been warning the U.S. to prepare for drone warfare for years. We've been on the ground in Ukraine and have seen how drone warfare has evolved. Hegseth confronted this last year when he announced an initiative to cut red tape and ramp up incentives around the military drone innovation.
This is excellent. I got to tell you, we're going to take a break, but this is really amazing that, we'll take care of business, but this is going to be over soon. These guys are depleted, Iran. They don't have anything left. They're going to try with these drones.
It's what happens
cheap.
when the Japanese run out of kamikaze pilots.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That wasn't really very smart. Okay, you guys, you go crash your plane into the ship, and when you get back, we're going to do it again. Oops. You know what I mean? All right, when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is how Washington works. Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. This is how American democracy works. Kristi Noem has been a very effective head of the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, but she's gotten herself in trouble for good reasons and bad reasons. The good reasons are that she's backed up the DHS personnel and the ICE when they've been confronting the mobs that have been demonstrating in favor of leaving illegal aliens with criminal records in the United States, and part of the Democratic Party approach. But she stubbed her toe a little bit when she paid for a national ad campaign that cost $200 million of tax money all throughout the country, allegedly to tell illegal immigrants not to come to the United States.
What's wrong with that?
But she did it in a way that would seem to be self-promotion. She was dressed in a cowboy outfit and on a horse and all that when she made the pronouncement.
Yummy.
And a lot of the Democrats raised hell and said she's promoting herself. And nobody much cared, but then Trump cared, in part because he doesn't want other people to get credit for what he's doing. And for the first time, they developed some sparks between Kristi Noem and Donald Trump.
I don't believe it.
Trump used this opportunity to kick Noem upstairs. On Saturday, he announced a new coalition in the Western Hemisphere to fight drug trafficking and cartels during the inaugural Shield of the Americas Summit in Miami. On this historic day, we come together to announce a brand new military coalition to eradicate criminal cartels plaguing our region. And Trump had all of the anti-communist, anti-Chinese, democratic governments of Latin America joining in this new Shield of America. And then when he had this set up for a couple of weeks, then last week he announced that the head of this effort would be none other than his buddy Kristi Noem. And so, in effect, he's kicking her upstairs to a very important position where she's going to be coordinating with all of the Latin American countries that are not owned by the Chinese.
So what you're saying is, I don't like what you did, but I'm going to give you a promotion. You're going to make more money. I don't believe he didn't like what he did.
He was also saying, I like what you did on immigration, but I don't like that you did these ads running throughout the United States.
He didn't say anything like that, did he? You just think you're Dick Morris, and you're usually right about this, but I don't think so. I think he really wanted her to be in this other position, and maybe he did see a couple of things happening, but
Noem has a background that is a little questionable. She wrote a book about
with the dog
about her own biography, which was sort of a campaign biography when it looked like she might even run for president. And she told the story that they bought a dog, she and her husband, and the dog went crazy and began eating everything in their house and going all over the house and even attacking neighbors.
That was what happened. It was attacking people, so she put it down.
So Noem killed the dog.
She didn't kill the dog. She put it down.
She got a rifle. She got her gun, and she shot it in the head, and she killed it.
I know.
And everybody raised hell about her going after the dog.
Okay, I get it.
And that probably cost her significantly.
I know.
Trump overcame that and named Kristi Noem, who's done a wonderful job at DHS. But it's so interesting to watch that evolve now.
Listen, I love dogs more than anything, more than people. But, if a dog has to be put down, so maybe she shouldn't have put it in the book. I don't know where she was going with that. But anyway, go on, Dick.
So this new coalition of pro-American Latin American countries to fight drugs and keep out China's influence is a very important step. The countries that are participating in the summit that's being held today as we speak, or yesterday actually,
yes,
were Argentina, where Milei, the president, is pro-American, Paraguay, Chile, where the pro-American leader was just elected, defeating the Chinese communist candidate, and a number of countries, including most recently Honduras, where Doug and I were involved in electing a pro-American president.
Tito Esfora.
So Trump has gotten together this coalition of Latin American countries, and it's a very important development. He calls it the Shield for the U.S.
Yes.
And I think it's...
Shield of the Americas.
Yeah.
Shield of the... meaning South America, really. Shield of the Americas. And we met with some people yesterday also. Some very important people in South America.
There's been a historical evolution here, starting with the Monroe Doctrine, which John Quincy Adams wrote for James Monroe as president. Mm-hmm. And it said to European countries do not intervene militarily in the United States, in Latin America. Do not reverse the results of the revolutions that have happened there. Because Spain was wanting the other European countries to come in and help it out in suppressing these revolutionary wars in Latin America.
On the negative side?
You're suppressing it, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And Monroe and Adams said, no, keep your hands off in the hemisphere. Then a couple of countries, led by Britain, said, hey, these Latin American countries owe us money. And they had been giving them loans that they knew probably couldn't be repaid, just like the Chinese are with their Belt and Road Initiative. And President Theodore Roosevelt said, hey, wait a minute, you're making these loans because you want to have leverage over these Latin American countries. And in fact, a number of them, like Britain, sent troops in to occupy the customs houses in Latin America so they could intercept revenues coming into the country and use it to pay off the loans that they had made. And Roosevelt wrote what he called the Roosevelt corollary of the Monroe Doctrine, that said that you can't make loans and use that to hold hostage these Latin American countries.
Kind of what China does.
And this is what China's doing, right? And this new development of setting up the shield of the Americas takes the Roosevelt corollary and makes it multilateral and makes it legal in the U.S. And really is a very important step in protecting the hemisphere. And it's all part of what Trump is doing here, to basically wall off the Western Hemisphere and make sure that nobody screws with it and that the U.S. is regarded as being the central force.
Wow, that's amazing. And when we get back, we have Betsy McCaughey calling in, probably...
running for governor of Connecticut.
Running for governor of Connecticut. She could win, huh, Dick? I really believe she could
can.
win.
I wrote a good ad for her. I'll read you all in a minute.
Okay, when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. President Trump has announced that there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that and the selection of a great and acceptable leader, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, make it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever. Iran will have a great future. Make Iran great again, MIGA, Trump continues. Trump's remarks came one day after he urged the Iranian people to help take back your country and promised the U.S. would grant them immunity amid war and dangers from the current regime. You'll be perfectly safe with total immunity, or you'll face absolute, or the persecutors will face guaranteed death. In interviews with Reuters and Axios, Trump said he would be involved in choosing Iran's new supreme leader to replace Khomeini, who was killed in the war. He dismissed the idea of Khomeini's son taking over Iran, calling him a lightweight. We want someone who will bring peace and harmony to Iran. Iranian state television reported Friday that the country's leadership council will begin discussions on how to convene the country's assembly of experts to select the new supreme leader. The Assembly of Experts, which is the group we bombed because they met outdoors during the war, is an 88-member clerical panel, but buildings associated with it have been damaged during the U.S.-Israeli airstrikes. The idiots met outdoors. And if there's similar intellect in the Iranian regime, we can relax. We're not going to have to worry about that.
They got bombed.
Yeah, they got bombed.
Drinking too much.
But it's going to be interesting to see how this process works, because the U.S. not only killed Khomeini, But we and Israel killed virtually the entire leadership structure of the Iranian regime, and now they basically have to replace it. And this news report you just heard indicates they have selected a new leader, but they're not going to tell who it is publicly, probably because he doesn't want...
He wants to live.
He wants to live, and he likes to have life insurance. But it's interesting to see how we'll spring on the Iranians who their new leader is going to be.
Oh, God. So, what do you got, Dick?
Now, I told you that Trump is working to pass the SAVE Act.
Didn't we kind of do this story already?
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting what he's done. He said that Trump said he will make a decision fairly shortly on who to endorse in the GOP Senate race.
Right.
But he wants to have the SAVE Act passed first. And then he's also said something else. He's also put on the table amendments to stop men from participating in women's sports. And he wants to make sure that the anti-therapy community trying to stop men being turned into women would be considered as part of this. So he tacked it on really as an amendment to the SAVE Act, which increases the likelihood of the SAVE Act being passed because it's a very popular act. So Trump's done two things now to save the SAVE Act. First, he made sure that he would not endorse for a new senator from Texas until the Senate passed this. And now he's added anti-gender change riders to the bill, so they increase the likelihood of their passing it.
And now you have support for socialism as it rises amongst women. This is amazing. A record number of 38% said they like the idea of America discarding capitalism for socialism. Unbelievable. 49% of registered voters polled said that capitalism is not working well or not working at all. And I'll bet they said that one on a $1,000 iPhone after pausing Netflix on the 65-inch TV while waiting for their daily DoorDash order. Right? We live in a country that is so prosperous, comfortable, convenient, cozy, and above all narcissistic that ignorant people feel the need to invent problems and crises. That's really what it's about. They invent their crisis, right? The latest Fox News survey released Thursday finds a record 38% think it would be a good thing for the United States to move away from capitalism and in the direction of socialism, up from 32% in 22, the last time the question was asked. In 2010, a low of 18% backed socialism. I don't know what's going on because they want free stuff. The shift, and they don't realize that free stuff is going to wear out. The shift may be tied to divided views on capitalism itself, the report adds. Voters are split over whether capitalism in the United States is working well. 51% say it's working very well or somewhat well, while nearly as many as 49% say it's working not very or not at all well. This is nothing less than a toxic mix of entitlement and ignorance. Unless your goal is to see hundreds of millions of people murdered, starved, and oppressed, socialism has never worked. Meanwhile, capitalism has been an unqualified success. Look around, dummies. We're ending poverty. Oh, sure, some people might still qualify as poor, but America's poor have $1,000 iPhones once again, air conditioning, health care, central heat, and obesity problem, massive TVs, access and microwave ovens. The modern-day poor in America live better than the top 1% did throughout 99% of human history. This obviously does not include the homeless, but they're on a separate problem involving addiction and mental illness. This should help clear things up. Stay with me here. Democratic women, 79%, and Democrats under the age of 45, 72%, are the most likely to give it poor marks. I'll bet that most of those 79% of leftist women whining about capitalism not working for them are just people who want more and think they deserve more just because they are so awesome. Our culture has spent decades poisoning women with the toxic nonsense that they deserve it because they just do. Men are told to be understanding and patient. We're required to protect and provide. Above all, we're shamed into ignoring our masculine nature. Meanwhile, women are told that they are perfect just the way they are and there is no need to improve or better themselves.
Isn't there a song, I love you just the way you are?
It should all come to them on a silver platter with the zero effort. Just believe women, cavemen. Just believe them no matter what they say. Remember we were talking about that a while back when Gorsuch was nominated and a woman was saying something. Oh, just believe her. The closest American has to full-blown socialism can be found in democratic-run cities and states that are losing their population. They get what they want and then, like a virus, flee and try to infect the rest of us. And that's what they do. They do, and they come to Florida, and then they want socialism in Florida after man-commie Zoran the Moran. No, Zoran the Moron.
Yeah,
I got a new name for him. I heard that from somebody now. I can't get credit for it. So Trump announces $20 billion of reinsurance programs.
Yeah, this is brilliant. The Iranians have been using their depleted navy, or what's left of it, and basically sea mines, to try to close the Straits of Hormuz. And as a result, oil prices have risen in the U.S. So Trump announced that he's getting the U.S. government to set up a reinsurance fund, a $20 billion reinsurance fund to protect oil tankers.
They're worried about the ships. You know, the people that are worried that incurring losses due to the Israeli and Iran retaliation strikes against the oil-rich Gulf. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, the DFC, outlined the program after President Trump ordered the agency to come up with ways to protect the tankers in the region. The president also said he would consider U.S. Navy escorts for the tankers. Oil prices have surged due to Iran's clampdown on the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil artery, and production disruptions across the Middle East. DFC CEO Ben Black said the new program will offer a level of security no other policy can provide. We are confident that our reinsurance plan will get oil, gasoline, liquefied natural gas, jet fuel, and fertilizer through the straits and flowing again to the world. That's what Mr. Black said. Reinsurance is often called insurance for insurance companies, in that it helps primary insurance transfer some of their risk to other entities. The DFC said it will work with the Treasury and the U.S. Central Command to help cover losses of up to $20 billion on a rolling basis. More like a floating basis, forget a rolling basis. Maintaining maritime traffic in the Middle East is a key concern for the administration. Trump ordered the operation to begin February 28th because he said Tehran did not meet its demands regarding its nuclear ambitions, missile programs, and support for terror proxies in the region. The price of U.S. crude oil surges about 12% to $90 a barrel on Friday. American drivers are starting to see higher gas prices too. So what? It'll be all right. The national average for a gallon of regular gas reached $3.32 per gallon on Friday, the highest point since September of 24, according to this data of the motor car. But let me tell you, under Obama and under Biden, I remember it going to almost $5.
Yeah,
it was $4 something, and I always said in Manhattan, on the west side, it was $7. I took a picture of it. So it was still okay, and we will be okay, because he's going to take care of this. He's going to have this insurance plan, and it'll stabilize. We'll see. I hope, but I believe it will.
It's a brilliant effort, this reinsurance plan.
Right.
And it's so typical of Donald Trump.
Right.
As opposed to just sending in more Navy and fighting the war. He's a businessman, and he sets up a reinsurance fund.
Right.
So he basically holds the oil companies harmless.
You know, it's funny that you said
ships that get sunk.
It's funny how you say that because he's a businessman. You know, he had reinsurance on all his buildings all the time. When he was building a $100 million building or whatever his cost was, you know he had reinsurance. He had to. So that's exactly how he's doing this, like a businessman. So the pandemic fraud largely in history. Pandemic unemployment insurance fraud was the single largest theft of the American taxpayer dollar in history, Linda Miller, president of Program Integrity Alliance, told a panel of lawmakers. And I mean, and this is her, and I mean that in absolute terms, she said, it completely dwarfs the fraud scandal we've seen in Minnesota, or any other fraud scandal to date. That's something. The Labor Department's internal watchdog, which aims to strengthen government fraud prevention, said it found almost $1 billion in potentially fraudulent claims obtained from pandemic unemployment insurance funds, prompting the House Ways and Means Subcommittee on Work and Welfare's Thursday's hearing. During the pandemic, the Department of Labor's unemployment insurance programs dispersed more than $880 billion in total benefits. At least $191 billion could have been improper payments, including more than $76 billion paid to fraudsters. The department's Office of Inspector General found.
This is
an
illustration
horrible.
What Rahm Emanuel said. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, right.
Pandemic descends, and immediately the rip-off artists are using it to rip off the funds intended for the poor people.
Like the prepaid debit cards that were issued to unemployment insurance applicants. Now $720 million remains unused cards, and 100 unused cards, and $192 million was surrendered to the state unclaimed property. But this is the thing. The good news is that the funds did not get into the hands of the fraudsters, subcommittee chairman talked about. They said that they're referring the money transfer to state unclaimed property. The bad news is instead of rightfully being recovered and returned to the federal treasury, the funds are now being transferred to state coffers as a result of inaction. This is kind of weird. Ms. Miller said this is low-hanging fruit, as these are recoverable funds identified by federal investigators and waiting for action. When the fraud became clear to banks, they were unable to do anything about it. It was told early on, we called and we couldn't get the money back. We didn't know who to ask. Nobody answered the phone. They didn't tell us how we could give the money back, Miller said. They were concerned that if they froze an account and tried to return that money to the government, they'd be held liable. She stressed the need for statutory framework that provides financial institutions with both a mechanism to get that money back and a safe harbor and protection if they freeze fraud-suspected funds. Only 5% of the fraudulent unemployment insurance payments made during the pandemic have been recovered. That's pretty bad, right at 5%. While the recovery of these funds would be a significant step in the right direction, Department of Labor Inspector Anthony D'Esposito said he requested additional measures for his office, more resources and tools, and an extension of the statute of limitations and legislative authority in asset forfeiture. The Pandemic Unemployment Fraud Enforcement Act, which was passed House last month, would extend the statute of limitations for prosecuting that's a good thing, about prosecuting unemployment fraud from 5 years to 10 years. While the bill would extend the clock for seizures and forfeitures, it does not give the Office of Inspector General the statutory authority it requires to fight that activity. That's kind of odd what they're saying right there. he encouraged Congress to make amendments to the Inspector General Act to give the officers that ability. There are criminals, whether they are here in the United States or of America or our adversaries across the globe, who are waiting for that statute of limitation to run out. There you go. So that they can cash in on some of that. Wow. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's kind of...
incredible. Incredible, but very useful that we're cracking down on that.
Yeah.
And but like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, right. I think we have to go to break. We have to go to break, Matt?
2 minutes, I think.
A couple of minutes, okay.
The Crown Prince of Iran, Raja Pahlavi, who is the son of the old Shah, who fled the country when the Ayatollah took over, said in a statement today that he is prepared to serve as the interim leader of Iran.
What do you know of him? Any good?
Well, his father was not good. Although he did a good job of modernizing Iran, he paved the way for the Ayatollah to take over.
Okay. So you think this guy might be in that same...
Yeah, he might be the same, but on the other hand, he might be good. There's been a strong exile community in the U.S. of Iranian regime people who served the Shah, who have been urging the son to come back into power. And that's a little suspicious because they basically were backing a corrupt, terrible regime under the Shah. But it's a new generation, and maybe it would be good. For 5 decades, the terrorist regime has sown chaos and bloodshed across our region, they said. It propped up Assad, turning Syria into a graveyard. It planted Hezbollah as a state within a state in Lebanon. It armed the Houthis to destabilize the Arabian Peninsula. It empowered militia in Iraq to undermine Iraqi sovereignty, and it attacked the economic hubs of Saudi Arabia and the United Emirates. None of this has ever been the desire of the Iranian people, but rather that of a regime occupying our country. This is what the Shah's son said. Now, however, the landscape has fundamentally shifted. Assad is gone. Hezbollah has been decimated. The region's military nuclear program has been set back. Its economy is in free fall. The pillars of the regime's aggression are crumbling. The Iranian people have paid the price in blood to reach this moment. The regime massacred tens of thousands of my compatriots, this is the Shah's son speaking, in just 2 days, but it didn't break the people. Instead, the regime itself is breaking. Today, his history reminds us of our future potential. Before the revolution, Iran worked closely with Arab leaders, from King Faisal to King Hussein to President Sadat, ancient history. In Oman, my father, the Shah, helped the Sultan defend his country against insurgency. We were true partners then. We will be true partners again.
Well, you know, Dick, I assume, I feel as though this guy has to side with us. I don't know us, but he can't be this crazy regime that Iran's been for 50 years, because they just pop some bombs over to all of these countries, you know what I mean? Right. And the countries are going to say, I don't think so. If this guy comes in and he acts like the last regime, you're going to have a war ongoing forever. Yeah. And now your military is so depleted and down, so he's going to have to come in and say, okay, let me stand up straight and talk to my neighbors.
Yeah, I hope so. I
would imagine he has
to.
But
it's not clear if Trump is going to trust him.
Right.
Or let him have power.
And that's going to matter. That's going to make it's very important if Trump trust, because the world is looking at Trump also.
Right.
And they know, I'm not bluffing. You know what I mean? If this guy comes in and I don't like him, something not good is going to happen. I don't want to say, So there you go. All right. So when we come back, we're going to talk about
the success of Doge. The success Trump has had in reducing federal employment.
Right. When we come back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. When Trump took office for his second term, there was a huge focus on Elon Musk and DOJ, Department of Government Efficiency. And Musk said that he would cut federal employment dramatically. And at first it looked like he had done so, and was very positive. But then the publicity about it faded, and it's not been in the news lately. But the federal government data shows that the government's civilian workforce has shrunk by 12% between September 24 and January 26, going from a headcount of 2,313,000 to 2,035,000. Separate data shows that the majority of the employees who left during that time did so voluntarily, like the illegal immigrants, rather than being forced out. Reuters report, the outlet also noted that the administrative staff, customer service representatives, and IT managers were at the top of the list of positions that left once Trump returned to office. Reshaping the federal workforce is essential to building a government that works for the American people, not the bureaucracy. By realigning roles, streamlining operations, and modernizing how agencies manage talent, we're strengthening performance and accountability across the government. This effort ensures taxpayer dollars support a workforce that delivers efficient, responsive, and high-quality services. That's OPM Director Scott Kober told Fox News. The White House highlighted the billions of dollars saved by cutting the government workforce and underscored the president's job creation in the private sector. President Trump's pro-growth economic agenda is fueling American prosperity the right way. All of the job creation under President Trump has so far been in the private sector, while federal government employment has shrunk to its lowest level since 1966.
Wow.
Projecting to save American taxpayers $30 billion annually.
Wow. Now hopefully the new governor of Connecticut will do the same type of work and cut taxes and whatnot. We have Betsy McCaughey on right now, who will be the next governor of Connecticut. Hi, Betsy.
It's good to talk with you. Yes, the reductions in unessential, non-essential as they call it, non-essential federal workforce is so impressive. It is saving American taxpayers so much money and producing more. The government is so much more efficient without all that dead weight.
Betsy, I wrote an ad for you, and I wanted to read it to everybody, a radio ad, to explaining how you're going to eliminate the income tax in Connecticut.
Yes, it's called Axe the Tax, Dick. Axe the Tax.
That's so
very
great.
Simple. I'm going to eliminate the state income tax in Connecticut. It's going to make the state far more prosperous, and it's going to make Connecticut the tax haven of the Northeast. Think Florida without the palm trees.
I love it.
So in this ad...
All these poor, overtaxed New Yorkers, they won't have to get on an airplane. They can just get in their car and drive to a tax haven right next door.
That's
and
beautiful.
Businesses will flock to Connecticut.
So the ad that Betsy and I worked on, the wife says, "How much do we owe?" And the husband says, "It's tax time, Connecticut. There's federal tax, and don't forget the state income tax here in Connecticut." And then the chorus says, "Axe the tax." The woman said, how much is that? The guy said, "Well, it depends on our income. If we make $100,000 a year, that's $6,600 in state taxes. If we make $200,000, it's $13,000. Axe the tax."
I love it.
Axe the tax.
$13,000 on top of federal taxes. Axe the tax. Well, what can we do? Axe the tax. What do you mean, axe the tax? Well, it's election time, and Betsy McCaughey is running for governor, and she wants to repeal the state income tax. Axe the tax. Repeal it? Where would the state get the money? Well, join the 340 Club. The 340 Club, what's that? Betsy's campaign is raising money to get her elected governor so she can axe the tax. And she's asking all of us to give $340 each. That will be enough to axe the tax. And the husband then says, count me in, $340 to save $13,000 a year, axe the tax.
Perfect. And I think we should have your hand with red nail polish holding an axe.
The point is, I hope everyone listening comes to Betsy2026.com. That's all one word. BETSY2026.com. We can axe the tax. And let me tell you, $340 is a bargain compared with what most Connecticut people are paying in state income tax.
Betsy, explain the $340. What's that got to do with the tax?
It's the maximum amount under the law that someone is allowed to contribute to my campaign. This isn't a big money campaign. It's lots of individuals donating no more than $340. And think what you can get for that. An end to the state income tax. Axe the tax.
Oh,
yeah. So you're actually raising money now to axe the tax, right?
That's right. I'm raising money now to defeat Lefty Lamont in November and axe the tax. And by the way, there's another issue I might as well mention because he's trying to ram it through the legislature this week. After all we learned with COVID, and no place suffered more than New York and Connecticut, the business closings, the school closings, the number of people who literally lost their lives because of all that draconian shutdown, right? Mm-hmm. Now they're trying to pass a bill in Connecticut. They call it a vaccine bill, but the most dangerous part empowers the governor to do that all again, to declare a health emergency and have unlimited authority. Unlimited authority for an unlimited amount of time.
Let's get this guy out of office before he sells us into slavery.
And that's just a power grab is what they do with this.
That's right. It's a power grab. And one thing Americans learned, never again.
Right.
Never to allow the federal government and the state governments to shut us down. Ruined people's businesses, destroyed their children's schooling. Terrible thing.
Now, another thing, Betsy, if you want, you could talk about, I know you want to have a couple of fundraisers in Connecticut. I don't know if you want to talk about it yet, but we're going to try to have Dick Morris be there, hopefully.
Oh, yes. He's my featured speaker, my man of wisdom.
Feature speaker.
Tell us how to give money to your campaign and to axing the tax.
Thank you. Come to Betsy2026.com. That's BETSY2026.com. You can donate. You can read the plan to axe the tax. This is a pro-growth plan. It's not an austerity plan. It will make Connecticut grow. In fact, the President's Council of Economic Advisors reported on January 26th that if Connecticut eliminates its income tax, business startups will increase 25 to 27%. What a huge increase, right? 25% the first year. And the average wage earner will earn $6,700 more pre-tax. It's not just the money you're saving by not paying the tax. You're going to have a bigger paycheck to begin with, because when you axe the tax, businesses grow and more businesses come into the state, and the overall level of prosperity increases enormously. The 10 most prosperous states in the country have no income tax.
And also your plan to, when you cut the tax, how you're going to pay for it. You have your plan.
That's right. There isn't going to be a big hole in the budget. Mm-hmm. When you announce that you're going to zero, businesses start to move in, the overall pace of business activity increases, and the law will say every time revenue increases 5%, governors and legislators are not allowed to spend that extra revenue. They are not. Their hands are tied. They must reduce the income tax rate instead. And excellent. Year by year, it will go to zero.
Excellent, excellent. And now, your fundraisers, where are they going to be and the dates, or are you ready to tell us?
Well, you come to my website, Betsy2026.com. They're all listed there. We'd love to have you because this very famous man, Dick Morris, President Clinton and President Trump, will be speaking. Fireside chats with Dick Morris. Isn't that wonderful?
That's great.
Meet and greet with Dick
Morris.
There's
no fire. Betsy, I think it's important to tell people that this is a fundraiser very different from any other campaign fundraiser you're going to be invited to. First of all, we can only soak you for $340 because that's the maximum permitted by state law. So we're referring to it as a $340 club.
Right.
You give $340, Betsy gets elected, and we stop the state income tax.
Right.
That's right, and bring prosperity to the state.
And secondly, we're going to dedicate all of the effort to repealing the income tax.
That's right.
So this is a fundraiser that will actually end up saving you money.
Right.
It will end up saving money, and it will guarantee that Connecticut, the young people in Connecticut, my kids and grandkids and yours, have a much brighter future. The fact is young people are leaving Connecticut in droves because they say, I don't have a future here, Mom and Dad. I don't have a career path here. Well, they will once we axe the tax.
You know, the contrast between man-commie in New York and you is unbelievable.
Well, that is a big difference. Mondami in New York, he is soaking everybody. I'm very concerned with what's going to happen. He's pushing the state legislature to increase the taxes.
Right.
And what's going to happen? It's suicide for New York. We're going to lose congressional representation. Businesses are heading for the exits. And it's a very bad recipe. It's a recipe for economic and political failure.
So we have to get your funds soon because you only have another month or so to build up these funds. Is that correct?
That's right. I urge everyone listening, and you have such a big audience, Dick, come to Betsy2026.com. You can read my economic plan. It's really there, rock solid, on how to axe the tax and bring business prosperity to Connecticut. Shockingly, Connecticut ranks 48th out of 50 states. New York is dead last, but Connecticut is pretty close. Hochul and Lefty Lamont, the governor of Connecticut, are in a foot race to see who can run the worst state.
Oh my God, that's their contest.
That's right. That Hochul's ahead, but Lamont's pulling up on her.
I call it Jokel.
That's right. But eliminating the income tax is the most effective way to turn a failing state's economy around. There's no question about it. The president's economic advisor, Steve Moore, who you know is very much behind this plan, Steve Moore says, don't go for all the other taxes yet. Start with the income tax. Right. And that's exactly what the very sage Dick Morris told me as well.
You know, just the incentive of people to move out, there's incentive to move back or to move into Connecticut when you're governor.
And especially
absolutely.
Since Hochul...
Corporate CEOs, 52% of corporate CEOs say they will move their company for a better tax deal. And when you look at a map of the United States, those CEOs are heading to the states that have low or no income tax. They're moving out of places like New York, Connecticut, and California, and they're moving towards states like South Carolina, Kentucky, that are eliminating the income tax.
Is McMahon still there? You know, the wrestling business, you know, in Connecticut?
Yes. He is still located in Stamford, Connecticut.
Right.
But it's a struggle, to use a pun. It's a struggle to keep wrestling or any other business in Connecticut. We've got to fight hard. So the best way to fight is to eliminate the very competitive environment across the United States. And unfortunately, Lefty Lamont has his head in the sand.
Really? So, and bear in mind that Connecticut is located right next to New York, New Jersey, and there's Connecticut and Massachusetts. So
right. We will
it's
be
right in the middle of this high tax environment. And if there's a state, Connecticut, that doesn't have the taxes, everybody always wonders why Connecticut went from a booming economy in the 1960s and 70s to being a basket case today. And the answer is that Lord Weicker imposed an income tax. What year was that, Betsy?
1991. That was the beginning, Dick, of the death spiral. That income tax put Connecticut into a death spiral economically.
And in fact, Weicker had just been defeated by the Connecticut voters in the primary for the Senate. So many people feel that this was essentially an act of revenge by him on the people of Connecticut, and certainly worked out that way.
And it was an act of deception. He preposterously said that he was going to keep the tax for only 1 year. And, of course, the very wise Ronald Reagan once said, there's nothing more permanent, more eternal than a government program or a government tax.
Ronald Reagan, he was amazing.
Well, Betsy, I wish you all the credit in the world, and please go to Betsy, Betsy, 2026.com. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you so much, Betsy.
My pleasure. Your show is a public service.
Thank you.
Okay. So when we get back, I'm going to take some calls. And as a matter of fact, let me get into the number. What is the number? I don't have it in front of me. Doesn't matter. I'll give it to you when we get back.
848-9222.
Right. 1-800-848-9222. Okay, when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. So let's take some calls.
Let's Sandra in New Jersey. She's probably playing piano right now.
No, I'm actually doing paperwork, listening to you at the same time. It's wonderful. You know, I wanted to say first about Roxanne's discussion this morning, about, not letting your parents know about your transition ideas. There's an old saying, you're as sick as your secret. So I wanted to comment on that.
Wow, that's pretty good. You're as sick as your secret.
Yeah.
But normally having a child and learning the sex of the child is something that you do at birth. And under California's rules, you do it in school and you hide the information from the parents.
Wow.
Crazy.
And like I said earlier, Sandra, for these people, for the left, they normalize this. Just the idea that it's normal to talk about the gender and your kid's 8 years old or 10 years old and you're discussing that with your children, it's just off. It's just so
and to
off.
bring a wheelbarrow full of pronouns that you have to use as opposed to he and his and her and her is just absurd.
I'm sorry. I just think that it's the parents, you got the super left parents that are feeding that to their children while they're small. They're having conversation with their friends when the kids are 4, 5, 6, 7, and the kids just get it, osmosis-wise. It just goes into their mind, and then they start talking to the kids. Oh, it's not so bad. You could play with Barbie, or you could wear a dress and put makeup on. My father would have beat the crap out of me if I ever wore a dress. You know what I mean?
Anyway.
Anyway,
I actually called, and I want to ask Dick, will this affect what I'm going to talk about, the midterm elections? So there's a man named Colby Elbridge. He has been in Trump's administration for the 2 different times, now and before, and he is a strategist, and he helped design the 2018 National Defense Strategy, and because of him, they got rid of Soleimani, and they had like a short war, in Iraq. So now I want to ask you, this man is saying, and he really feels this way, that this war that we're involved in now should be short. And he talks about, the layout of the land in Iran is very different than the layout in Iraq. We have mountains, and they create narrow invasion routes. So the army, if they happen to go on the boots, and I hope they don't, they're going to have a tough time. And I also read that, that Iran has trained their soldiers to fight for this cause, and their army is called Islamic Revolutionary Guard Troops. And they're prepared to fight this, and then plus their regular army. So there's a lot of things going on. The layout of the land and the 90 million people that this Iran has versus Iraq. It's a whole different ballgame. And I'm hoping that we don't go in on the ground. We stay like it is and we get it done quickly. Because, Dick, if we don't get it done quickly, won't this definitely influence the midterms?
Yeah, I think it would, and I think for that reason, among others, Trump will do it quickly. There's been some speculation today that he's going to send in special forces to Iran to assist in decapitating the leadership. That's been his strategy so far, and he also has the Kurds coming in, and they're likely to play the same role they did that their equivalent did in Afghanistan. Where they defeated the Taliban on the ground. So don't sell Trump short on this. He's not going to get involved in a prolonged war. He's not going to get involved with American troops and casualties. He's very determined to avoid this.
And he's not going to let it interfere with the midterms, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. So I think your concern is correct, but I think that Trump has it already and knows what to do about it.
What did you call the army again that they have going? Revolutionary?
Yeah, it's the Revolutionary.
I put my notes here.
That was the same as...
it's called the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Troops.
That sounds like Saddam Hussein's army. It's almost the same type of, title. Remember Saddam had that?
It's a tough group. It's a tough group. It's not like it's like a tough one, like you got to watch out for this group. But look,
we're tougher.
My money's on Trump.
And Trump is tougher. So thank you so much, Sandra. It was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's take Harriet in Brooklyn. She wants to talk about Zoran the moron. Hi, Harriet.
Thank you both for your great patriotism. I love both of you. And God bless Donald J. Trump. God bless you, Mr. President. Yeah. Let's talk about Zoran Iran Mondani. My father was a World War II veteran. He worked in the Navy Yard on the ships, the USS Iowa, the USS Missouri, and when it came banged up from the Pacific, he worked on the Intrepid. He volunteered for active duty. LST 294 with the whole crew there, Captain Cantaloupe, O.E. Harris, two black guys. It was the little ship that could. And he also told me that the great heroes are on Utah Beach and Omaha Beach, the crosses and the stars of David. God bless all of them. And God bless the president and our troops today. Now, what bothers me more than ever, because as my father was working in the Navy Yard, it was a federal facility, and it helped, of course, all the Navy Yard, all the ships. It was a massive effort. They saved Western civilization. Now, Mondani comes in. There's it's a facility that's controlled by the city of New York at the behest of Zoran Mondani. So we have Easy Aerial, which is a defense contractor, 7-year contract with the Navy Yard, and he got rid of them. And the New York Post states that because Mondani is pro-Palestinian, and there's no such thing as Palestine.
Wait, you're saying Mondani got rid of the Navy Yard? What did it say there, Harriet?
Aerial, a drone company, Easy Aerial. It's the defense contractor for Israel, who is our partner in Liberty now with the United States of America. He had a 7-year contract. Because Mondani, according to the New York Post, is pro-Palestinian. Okay, Mondani, define Palestinian in 60 Common Era.
Well, thank you for that information, Harriet. I really appreciate it. We have to take a break, and when we get back, we'll continue. Thank you, Harriet.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So, Dick Morris, he's almost never wrong. As a matter of fact, last night he picked a restaurant, he was wrong. But we got Patrick in Indiana that says Dick Morris is wrong. What's up, Patrick? Let's have at it.
I don't think Dick Morris and President Trump are sincere enough about enforcing the Constitution, because President Trump, the Supreme Court said that President Trump couldn't enforce his tariffs, and the Constitution divides the authority between the President and the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, Article 3, has authority over domestic affairs, not foreign affairs.
Okay, but bear in mind, sorry to interrupt you, but the Supreme Court has ruled that it is constitutional for Congress and for the President to limit trade from certain countries and to impose tariffs on them, even though the Congress has the first authority for tariffs. If there's evidence of trade discrimination, and Section 122 gives the President the authority to impose tariffs in response to a pattern of discrimination from other countries. And that's been affirmed by the Supreme Court. And so I think we're doing fine. Who we got?
And now we have Tony from New Jersey. You don't like Mumbles, McConnell?
How you doing, guys?
All right.
I bring up two subjects. First subject is they ought to investigate Mitch McConnell and get him in line to back the president. He's a bum. He should have been thrown out last year, but you guys said no. And the second thing is I'm concerned that with the regime change in Iran, that it's coming. But I'm afraid what happened to Yugoslavia might happen in Iran, where you have different minorities breaking away, causing civil war and genocide, and then, we have to go back in there.
Well, that's a real danger when you deal with Iran. It's a country of 90 million people, and there are all sorts of communities there. There are Kurds, there are Awazi Arabs, Baluch communities, Lur, Bakatawi tribal networks.
Wow.
Monarchists allied with the Pavlovian.
And are you saying all of those that you just mentioned have a different view on things, or?
Well, they may.
Wow.
They may. And the problem is that we don't want to have to for the country to get so fractured like Iraq did, where we get mired in a civil war there. And I think that's the real danger that we face. People see the results of failed conflict and failed diplomacy. And most diplomats hope that this type of horrible mistake does not happen again in regions like Venezuela and Iran. After decades of conflict, Americans increasingly want a different path forward. Further, it's obvious that a ground war is impossible, as Ukraine has shown, that satellite and drone warfare reigns supreme. Trump will probably not send regular troops into Iran, and he'll probably finance key groups to stabilize the nation while ruling its airspace and strategic satellite space.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Tony. That was great. So you're saying, Dick, with all of these, how many? Whatever, you just mentioned 8 different types of groups and attitudes, and who were religious, who were secular. I mean, are most of them
Iraq
religious?
was only Sunnis versus Shiites. Iran has a dozen.
What was that, 91?
Nationalities.
His name came in, and
but Iran has so many different nationalities that there's a risk that we fracture it and it becomes essentially ungovernable. And we have to be sure that does not happen. These groups.
We can't be totally sure. we'll have to shut off Dick's phone. First of all, with that should be our ending, our song to go out. Dick, this was fantastic. It's an honor to be here. And thank you, Roxana, for On the Rocks. That was fantastic, Roxana, On the Rocks.
Yeah,
she got mad at me last week. I didn't mention On the Rocks at the end of the show. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. And Betsy, thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here? At Manhattan University, a graduate degree is not out of reach. You'll gain real-world skills, credentials employers value, and connections to New York City's top companies. Choose from their new Master of Science degrees in Healthcare Informatics, Digital Marketing and Analytics, Business Analytics, or Financial Analytics, all built around hands-on learning and industry partnerships. Graduate ready to lead, not just work. Take the next step at manhattan.edu/graduate. Manhattan University. Lead the future.